Glad you're here tonight with us, and I love that new song. You know, sometimes, a few years ago, there was a thing out called 7-11 songs. Have you ever heard of that before? 7 words that you sing 11 times. And so folks didn't like that very much, and I understand that, why they didn't. Yet, at the same time, when you get to heaven, in Revelation chapter 4, it's 15 words. Holy, holy, holy is the Lord God Almighty, who was and is and will be, so to speak. 15 words that will be said forever. It never stops. It will be even more than that song at Disney World, It's a Small, Small World. Over and over again, we'll hear that. And so tonight we'll continue on with our series, our idea of lessons from the county fair, and taking different ideas or different concepts. If this is your first time here, just something to kind of put together in my thoughts. And so there are different things you find at a county fair, but one of the things that's important at a county fair is who has the most blue ribbons. Who's going to win the most? There is a woman I read about the other day by the name of Linda Skeens. I bet you have never heard of her unless you really get involved in finding odd things on the internet. Linda Skeens, not long ago, won 30 blue ribbons 3 years ago this happened, won 30 blue ribbons at the Virginia State Fair. Can you imagine that? 30 blue ribbons. You might think of someone winning 1, and wouldn't that be something? Or even if you got a second or third place, she won 30. Which that was the most she'd ever won at one state fair before. So they asked her, how many do you have? She has 1,400 blue ribbons. Wow, she likes to compete, doesn't she? And it was all about cooking and baking, incidentally, which makes, surely she has a cookbook that's coming out at some point, you would think. It is important, obviously, and it's fun to win blue ribbons. Everybody likes a blue ribbon or even a red ribbon or whatever it may be. And making comparisons of ourselves to other people can be good. It's fun to go, people I don't think dislike. Well, they may dislike her at this point after she wins so much. But it's good. Competition is good. It's fun. And sometimes it's good to see how we're doing compared to someone else so that we know where we are or where we stand. One of our daughters, I remember years ago, maybe she was in 2nd grade, maybe 1st grade, I don't remember exactly. We had that parent-teacher time, you go early in the semester and you sit and talk to the teacher and they're going to tell you, you hope they will tell you how wonderful your child is. And most of it was about how wonderful she was, except we said, well, how's she doing in reading? Well, she's last in the class. Excuse me, what? She's last in the class. It's like, seriously? Our daughter is last in the class? Well, let me say this. We went crazy. We went home. We bought, in those days, Hooked on Phonics. Some of you remember the phone number, 1-800-ABCDEFG. That was the phone number to call in. We bought the Hooked on Phonics, and she won the class contest that year for reading the most books. She learned to read and became a great reader and reads as a hobby and as something fun to do. Making comparisons can be a good thing, but it can also be dangerous. It can be dangerous when you start looking at other people and wondering about other people and looking down on people because maybe they don't have what you have or maybe you're better than they are. And you are very impressed with yourself and how great you are. And it can destroy a person. What we have to remember is we all have different gifts. Every one of us have different things. And so you may be good at one thing, and I may be good at something else. And so we come together as a team. One throws the ball, one runs the ball, one blocks for the one with the ball. We all have different talents, even when it comes to church life, spiritual life, whatever the issue may be. A large company would have people of various roles. One of the things I think is interesting is I drive by these big buildings in the energy corridor where some of you work and know that people go to work every day and they carry a briefcase or a computer case and they have jobs as accountants and various things that work for those companies. Well, where I grew up, people had the same exact names on their shirts as the ones who work in the energy corridor. The difference was they were wearing coveralls and shirts with the names, And they were all muddy and dirty because they were literally out at the oil field sites. We have different talents. We have different gifts, the way the Bible puts it in 1 Corinthians 12:4. Now, there are different gifts, but there's the same Spirit. It takes all of us working together. I shouldn't think that I'm better than you because I go to work in an office building and you go out to the field, because if the person in the office building didn't have the person in the field, then they wouldn't have a job in the office building. And the person in the field can't think I'm worth more than you are because you just work in an office building, because there would be nowhere to send all those great profits, right, if you just worked out in the field. You need everyone working together. Well, envy is evil. When I start envying what you have, when I start thinking, oh, I want what you have, and it starts boiling up in me, and I start feeling my body change when I look at your house or your car or your family or whatever it is, and I start to change and feel something. As 1 Peter chapter 2, verse 1 said to Christians, therefore rid yourselves of all malice and all deceit, of hypocrisy, of envy, and of all slander. Get rid of these things if you're going to call yourself a disciple of Jesus. If you're going to call yourself a Christian, then what you've got to do is not have this bad heart, and not be a person that is deceitful or a hypocrite, not envy what your neighbor has or your coworker or even your brother or sister in your family or in your Christian family. Get rid of envy, and certainly do not talk and say bad things against someone. In James chapter 3 and verses 16 and 17, excuse me, this goes on again in a similar way. For where there is envy and selfish ambition, there is disorder and every evil practice. But the wisdom that's from above is first pure, then it's peace-loving, and it's gentle, and it's compliant, and it's full of mercy and good fruits, unwavering, without pretense. Do you see what he's saying? This is what it looks like to be a Christian in the way we live our lives. This is practical teaching here. When you have those things that are negative, like envy and selfish ambition and trying to beat each other, whether you're in a church setting or somewhere else, you'll find disorder, people not living in a way they should, people saying things against each other, maybe even hurting each other physically. But if you want to look like Jesus, with Jesus-type wisdom, well, it's pure, and it loves peace. It's gentle. It's compliant. It's full of mercy, and it's full of good fruit. It's unwavering, and it does not have pretense. This is what it looks like to be a Christian. So envy destroys families and businesses and societies and even churches. When we envy what someone else has, oh, that's mine, I deserve that, that should be mine, we can destroy an entire society. And maybe we even see societies, maybe even our own, we may debate being destroyed by envy of what we have, or nation going to war versus nation because of envy. But even husband versus wife, kids versus parents, kids versus each other, all those things that happen even in a church setting. In 1 John chapter 2, verses 16 and 17, for everything in the world, the lust of the flesh, the lust of the eyes, and the pride in one's possessions, is not from the Father, it's from the world. And the world with its lust is passing away. But the one who does the will of God remains forever. And remains, we could easily say, with God. So it's the lust of the flesh, the lust of the eyes, pride in one's possessions. Kind of goes back to, sounds like the Garden of Eden and some of the things that we talked about before with the sin of Adam and Eve. So we understand the lust of the flesh. We understand the lust of the eyes. I want that I can see, but even the pride in one's possessions, whether that pride, those possessions are something physical, or if they are something that's not tangible with our hands to touch, that sometimes we can become prideful people. and proud of our accomplishments in a way that is overwhelming and wrong and sinful. So when my pride is hurt, I may hurt other people. When someone hurts me, then sometimes what I want to do is lash out at someone else. Makes me think of that fish. I should have shown you a picture. I'm sure you know what it is. A puffer fish. Do some of you know what that is? A puffer fish, like a blowfish, they'll get like 2 or 3 times their size. Actually, I'm a very small man, but I am puffed up angry right now, okay? So a puffer fish has enough poison in it that it is 1,200 times more lethal than cyanide. A puffer fish has enough poison in it to kill 30 human beings. Because whenever the puffer fish is attacked, or the puffer fish feels like something's coming its way, now obviously in some ways it can be a good thing in the fish world, but in the human world, it can be devastating to be a puffer fish. It's a devastating thing to come after a person. It doesn't mean that we have to agree, but it can mean that what I do destroys more than what I don't do. You see, sometimes people lash out because they think they're so wonderful, and they're, as you've heard that phrase, they are God's gift to the earth, or God's gift to humanity, however you put that. God's gift to women. You've heard that about men before. And sometimes that is the way people are, but other times people probably have a really low self-esteem. And they may beat up themselves whenever their pride is hurt. And so then they beat up themselves, and then they lash out in some other way. Maybe they feel worthless or when criticized, or that they're not very valuable, so therefore they attack. You get them in a corner like a cat, and they come out like a cat does. Stay away from cats, okay? Because they will attack, I hear. You must be cat lovers. Nobody laughed. Okay, sorry about that. I'm not against cats. I must remember that I am unique and special. You remember back earlier, whenever we talked about it, we each have our own gifts that God has given us. And sometimes that's really difficult. If I'm not, I think everybody ought to hear it, listen to me sing. I heard myself the other day on a recording, and I sounded really good, but I was the only one that thought that. That's truth. Sometimes I have to remember that I'm important. And I have my abilities, that I can do things that maybe you can't, or that a lot of other people can't, and you can do a lot of things I can't. And we all work together like a puzzle. I think about Psalm 139, verses 13 and 14. For it was you, God, who created my inward parts. You knit me together in my mother's womb. I will praise you because I have been remarkably and wondrously made. Excuse me. Your works are wondrous, and I know this very well. Can you imagine that? God saying, I have knit you together in your mother's womb. I have made you in this special way, and now because I have been made by God in this way, I am going to praise you because you've done this. Now, sometimes we look at a person and we think, well, what could they do? But if we talk to them very long, we find out everybody has something they can add. Everyone can do something, and most people can do many things. We were fearfully and wonderfully made by God, that there is no one that is worthless. It doesn't matter where we are from, what nation we're from, what passport we carry or don't carry, what our race is. God has a purpose for all of us. God wants all of us. And so I have to remember that I'm unique and special, and God has a plan for me. So rather than focusing on what's wrong with me, that's what some people do. They keep thinking about themselves. They look inward. Other people keep looking at those people next to them over on this side and that side. They look sideways and look at those people are terrible. Oh boy, I sure wish I had their house. Those people, that guy is terrible or woman is terrible. Sure wish I had their job. And we look this way. But the person who honors Christ and looks like Jesus, They look forward. They look toward God. They look toward Him, and those are the people who will be honored by God. There's an old illustration back in farming country they used to use about the importance of keeping your eye on the fence post in front of you whenever you're plowing. Because if you look over to the right, you will end up plowing toward the right. If you look over to the left, you will plow toward the left. But if you keep your eye on the fence post in front of you, you will plow toward a straight line, which is what you were called to do. The same thing happens to us. When I look over here, I look over there, my direction in life starts going the wrong direction. When I look inward, all I do is end up drilling a hole through myself. And that doesn't do any good either. Keep our eyes and our focus, as the Hebrew writer said, on Jesus, looking straight ahead toward Him, because I have been fearfully and wonderfully made. I am unique and special. And my question for us tonight is, do I trust God? Do I really trust Him? Because what I sometimes try to do is take things into my own hands. Nope, I want to handle this. I've got God, but I can handle this one. Really? Because I know a lot of times I've tried to do that and I make a mess of things. Because I take my eyes off of God. And really what's happened is I'm hurt, and so therefore I lash out. Or I'm envious because I think I'm so much better than everybody else, and I lash out. But I want to look like Jesus. I want to look like these verses that James shared with us, that Paul shared with us, and I want to put Jesus first in all. Tonight, if you want to be baptized like those men were today that you heard about, you can be baptized tonight. Come forward or talk to me in the back. If you need prayers, we'll pray for you as a group, or you can write to us at prayer